Today's the day. Sorry, I've got a bit of bedhead today. Yeah, no, hang on, let me just fix that. We got some more reveals. Kind of coming in hot. Yeah, Ziggs today for sure, Copium. I honestly, I kind of like this better. Like, instead of doing like champions and followers, like alternating every day, they just do 4 days at the start, which is all followers. And then for the rest of the week, it's just all champions. It just makes sense. All right, here we go. Veigar reveal. Oh my God. All right, when I'm summoned, create a darkness in your hand if you don't have one. Round start, grant your extra darknesses everywhere, 1 extra damage. Oh my God, Mo was right. It's a 4-mana 1/4, and he is a Shadow Isles card. He's the Shadow Isles Bandle champion. He levels up if you've dealt 12 damage with darkness.
Good, my bonus friend. I totally understood that.
And darkness is deal 2 to an enemy. It's 3 minutes slow, and it starts at deal 2 to an enemy.
Come to witness my ingenuity, Lord Veigar.
I'll read the followers
Stretching
after.
my legs, number 3. It's a total people thing. Time to reveal our superior battle
So
tactics.
he's sort of like Lux a little bit. He generates these things every turn that control the board.
Don't use that word! Yes, please, thank you. Reporting in. Witness true power.
And a lot of his followers just help summon more of these darkness things and buff them.
A minute. Wow,
That's just stun the entire board. I see that right?
Stop me, puppy. No
Deal 7.
hero can. I am the destroyer of worlds.
Grand Overseer Veigar. Create darkness in him to feel around, and his level up just gets this last line. Your darkness can target anything. Ah, I love it.
They're all so tiny.
SI Bird is back. Yeah, we'll see. All right, here we go. So we've got here. Let me move my stupid head. We've got yeah, no, this will do. Yeah, I can just cover that up. We don't need that. Okay. Darkness deal 2 to an enemy, and that's just a token off of Veigar. And keep in mind, Veigar gives your darknesses everywhere 1 extra damage. That means darknesses that haven't even been created yet, right? So it just kind of like scales over time. And the biggest thing is like Veigar comes out on turn 4. I can guarantee you there's someone's typing up a Reddit post right now saying, well, now that Veigar's 4 mana, can we buff Lux? That's gonna be on the front page of Reddit today. I can already see the post because Veigar is like a Lux that doesn't suck. All right, then we've got Event Horizon, the one I'm covering right now. This one's a Bandle only card, as you can see there, and it's fast, stun an enemy, then stun all enemies with 2 or less power. Wow. Ooh, that is pretty good for 5 mana. That's a little crazy. That's kind of nuts. Holy shit. Like, this is definitely going to be used in a lot of decks. I mean, it comes down to the metagame for sure. But like, this is, you know, I mean, Concussive Palm being a very, very good card. This is kind of like almost on the level of Concussive Palm. You will see this in a lot of decks in metagames where you want to stop a lot of like wide strategies, like elusives or like aggro. Like, this is a really, really, really good anti-aggro card. This is actually, I think, insane. Event Horizon, because specifically what this card wants to do is it's just like the stabilizer, right? Like, it'll be a really, really powerful anti-aggro card in any Bandle deck that wants to play for like a semi-control game plan. Basically, you can kind of like stop an entire attack with this, which is really, really, really nice, right? Like, Bandle now has access to this card, and they have access to like really, really good stall game plans because of it. It's like a good roar. Yeah, exactly. It's like a good roar. And of course, since it says the word stun on it, people are going to try to build Yasuo decks out of it, which Just gets funnier every time, actually. All right, next we've got Darkbulb Acolyte, a 2-mana 2/2 augment Bandle Yordle. When I'm summoned, create a darkness in hand if you don't have one. That's interesting. So I mean, mostly Veigar is kind of what makes the darknesses stronger. Darkbulb Acolyte, I don't know how good this is gonna be, because mostly you just want to keep Veigar on the board and then just kind of like use your darknesses every single turn, right? Like you can get a darkness earlier. He can be kind of like a finisher with Veigar, but you often don't want to play him super early. Then we've got Tenor of Terror. This is a 4-mana Shadow Isles Bandle card. Impact 4-mana 2/3. When I'm summoned, if you've played a created card or killed a unit with a spell this game, summon a Base of Burden. Base of Burden? What is that supposed to be? And that is also, that's a token that's a 3/2 impact. I guess that's Base of Burden because it's tenor. And tenor and bass are like, that's like a thing, like a music thing. All right, got it. Veigar doesn't generate them, it's only on summon. Oh yeah, sorry. He only generates the darkness on summon, and it's round start that he grants the darkness everywhere. Yeah, that's not my bad. So Darkbulb Acolyte will be useful for that. Sorry, I misread that. So yeah, basically this one, Tenor of Terror and Base of Burden, is just a double body. It's sort of like, you know, like the Golden Sisters and the Silver Sisters from Invokes. They summon double bodies. This one's a little bit weirder because they're kind of like small bodies that don't really have good keywords, but impact can be a little bit scary. So I mean, I can see this dealing some, like, threatening some burn damage. Then we've got Twisted Catalyzer, a 2-mana 3/2 strike, grant your darkness everywhere, 1 extra damage. So this is a 3 of auto include in any Veigar deck, hands down, not even close. And we've got Wizened Wizard, a 3-mana 3/2 round start, refill 1 spell mana. Interesting. That's really interesting. Refills 1 spell mana every round start. That's not bad. Coming in the board as a 3-mana 3/2 already, it might be a little slow. This one's really hard to evaluate because I could see this card being really low key, but I think the fact that you have to pay 1 up front and you can't really block it down for a few turns, I don't know if Wizened Wizard will be hitting decks right away. And there's also like a lot of cases where, you know, you might have full spell mana, which happens a lot in decks that want to use spell mana. Like, it might end up being a little too slow for this outline. If it was a 2/3 or if it was a 3/3, then this card would be really good. It's so close, but I think I don't know if it'll be hitting decks. It's either way, it's a really unique effect, and I like more of this kind of thing being in the game. Okay, so let's see if there's any more cards, because usually there's a few more over here that we didn't see in the trailer. So we've got, so Event Horizons is Veigar's champ spell. This means that, and I guess that's his cage, right? Yeah, that's supposed to be Veigar's cage. It basically just like stuns them all. Stilted Robemaker is a new card, a 4-mana 3/4. When I'm summoned, to reduce the cost of your darkness everywhere by 1. That's another 3 of auto include in the Veigar archetype. And Minimorph, transform an enemy into a 3/3 Mini-Minitee and silence it. So this is a 6-mana burst speed Bandle spell, and the Mini-Minitee. So it's like a manatee. It's a Mini-Minitee. God damn it. And this will basically just like permanently turn an enemy unit into a 3/3 for 6 mana. That is a bit expensive, and it can only be used on enemies. I mean, the fact that it can target champs is really nice. Like, it removes it from the board permanently, right? And it's at burst speed, so it's kind of like a vengeance, right? It's like a vengeance that it gives them a 3/3, but it's burst, and it's 6 mana, and the enemy is just like gone forever. That's a little crazy. That's a little bit crazy. Because, like, I mean, like, obviously Whimsy looked good when it came out until we realized that the follower only clause is really bad. Like, the fact that this can target champions is huge, and it's permanent, right? Like, this is it's just gone forever. So this card looks pretty crazy. I will say, I mean, Obviously, the fact that they get a 3/3 for free will sometimes not like alleviate the pressure that you need, but this looks pretty disgusting. Like this will remove a lot of single answers. The fact that it's at burst speed does make it better than something like Vengeance. Like this, basically they have to pre-commit spell shield. Even this gets past stuff like deny. Like this card seems pretty broken, Minimorph, honestly. Like it's just such a good control tool. So today's reveals were actually like a really big deal, because keep in mind, this is another Bandle card. Today's reveals are basically saying between Minimorph and between Event Horizon being a main deckable card, and these are both Bandle cards, suddenly like Bandle was looking like a kind of gimmicky combo-y region, but they have some like real legitimate control outlets, like crazy legitimate. That's pretty nuts. And then the tenor and the base of burden that we saw before, it's like polymorph. Exactly, it's like polymorph, except it's at speed, and Hearthstone doesn't really have speed. But yeah. No, I mean, Minimorph is a really big deal. So yeah, all of a sudden, Bandle is looking like they actually have a really solid control option as a region. All right, so it looks like that's it, right? Unless there's some bug. This is Hush on Omega steroids. Yeah, pretty much. The thing about Hush, and the thing about Whimsy as well, the thing about those cards is that Hush only lasts the round, and what that means is it's good at stopping things that have to go to combat and that the opponent can't protect during combat. Those two factors have to be true. Like the opponent has to basically try to attack with a unit, then you can Hush it and block it. And then it has to be something, you have to have a unit that's bigger, and it needs to, the opponent can't have the ability to save it that turn, because if you save it that turn, then it gets unhushed. This one is just unconditional. This one is just, you just compare this to Vengeance, their unit's just gone. This doesn't get stopped by spell shields in the same way that Vengeance does. Like obviously they can pre-commit spell shield. It's 6 mana, which is a big deal compared to Vengeance. Like this card is pretty nuts. This card is pretty crazy. So let's go back to the initial impressions, back to the Veigar package. So I can tell you right now, Veigar is going to have one deck. This is kind of an auto build. And the reason for that is because he's really dependent on his support cards. He's a high synergy concept, and half of his support cards are Bandle and half of his support cards are Shadow Owls, right? Like Darkbulb Acolyte, you're going to need, and this is a Bandle card. Stilted Robemaker, you're going to need, this is a Bandle card. Twisted Catalyzer, you're going to need, this is a Bandle card. And there was one that was a Shadow Owls card. Did I misread it? I swear to God, there was one of them that was a Shadow Owls card. Oh, I guess I am dumb. I guess you actually don't need to be in Shadow Owls. Okay. Yeah, they're all Bandle. My bad. So yeah, Veigar, he's basically just like all Bandle cards. You're gonna want to run this entire support package no matter what. Like it's a pretty auto build for the Bandle side. You're running 3 Veigars, you're running 3 Darkbulb Acolytes, you're running 3 Stilted Robemakers, you're running 3 Twisted Catalyzers, but you can choose your second region, and that's kind of like a big deal, right? Like suddenly you actually have the ability to flex out into a second region. Why Shadow? Yeah, Veigar's second region here actually kind of like hilariously doesn't do anything, right? Like he's part as Shadow Owl's card, but it's kind of impossible to run him outside of Bandle, because like you need all of these support cards for Veigar to really make sense, and that's not something you can do in just Shadow Owl. So like his second region almost doesn't matter. But yeah, you have a lot of like freedom of use for Veigar. You just kind of want to be able to like sort of control the board. He's got sort of like a Maokai kind of stat line. He's like a 4 mana 1/4 that just generates value every turn. Except unlike Maokai, the way he generates value is like trying to control the board. I guess Maokai's kind of does too with the saplings. But this one controls the board in like a pretty reliable way. And he's kind of like an actual win condition, right? Maokai has a really hard time being a real win condition, and I know that it sometimes can be when it levels up and it deletes the opponent's deck, but even then you have to wait like 4 extra turns. It's like it takes a really specific case for Maokai to end up being a win condition, and that's why in his own deck deep, Maokai ends up being like a side win condition. Veigar, when it levels up and when it can start targeting face, is actually a win condition. Like that will end games, and that's a really big deal. Darkness kegs is not a bad approach with darkness. I don't think it really makes the most sense, but if your second region is kind of free and you can be in Bilgewater, then I could see that. Then I definitely could see that. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure what Veigar's second region wants to be in a deck, right? Like it's a semi-control deck. You just kind of want to like play passively and get a lot of like time left on your board and make sure you're stalling out enough, because like these cards don't really slow down the opponent's game plan quite enough. Karma, Veigar Karma, you know, it seems pretty unlikely to me, but it's not impossible. It actually isn't. Like, and that's coming from me, you know. And Karma is usually not competitive, but there is actually a chance it could end up being Karma, right? Because like Ionia does have like pretty decent slowdown tools. It really depends on like the state of Ionia after this. Veigar on Probulator, and Probulator is kind of funny actually, because of course the darknesses cost 3 mana. Although none of your support cards cost 3 mana either. I mean, I guess if you're running a Probulator, you could actually think about running Wizened Wizard. Wizened Wizard? Is it Wizened or Wizened? But yeah, no, that's another direction as well. I mean, you could run Swain. You could run like P and Z. Okay, don't run Swain. You could run like P and Z tools. You like Veigar wants to be combined with like a stally slowdown package, right? So you could think about running like Noxus tools that can slow the game down. I think that's a little bit awkward because Noxus to slow the game down requires like Ravenous Flock. And you really want your Noxus has a really hard time personally providing Ravenous Flock support, which is like pings that can damage units. You really have to run the Swain Flock package and something like PNZ or Bilgewater that can ping, and Bandle can't really do that very well. Like Darkness is not a good way of doing that. Darkness wants to be like one-shotting things, so I don't think running like Noxus as the control package makes sense. You could run PNZ. PNZ makes a lot of sense, just like solid cards in general that are going to be like controlling the opponent's board. You could think about Freljord even. Freljord is kind of like a control region. They're sort of disappeared from the current metagame right now, funnily enough. But of course, like Freljord will have a lot of good like sweepers and a lot of good freezes as options. Eye of the Dragon. You could run Eye of the Dragon, yeah, in like a Karma style deck that would work, and you have like the pranks to enable it. So that's really not bad. And I mean, it's not impossible to run Shadow Isles, right? Like I said, you don't need to be in Shadow Isles, but Shadow Isles does have a lot of control tools. They do have a lot of like ways to keep you in the game, like Vile Feast. Vile Feast is such an underrated card, man. It's like Vile Feast is like Shadow Isles card, but you can run like, depending on how control you want to go, you can run like a more control-y package with like Withering Wail and just kind of like stay alive. Although honestly, I mean, now that we have Minimorph, you're definitely not going to need Vengeance, right? So yeah, for the most part, you can just like use these cards to get enough darknesses, and I think that's kind of like the list. And then of course Ionia with Karma, like I mentioned before. So you're gonna want to run him with one of those colors. I need to think about it more to see exactly like what makes the most sense, like try to kind of build the decks myself. But my initial impressions of Veigar is he could be all right. I mean, he's kind of like, he looks pretty slow and pretty meta dependent, but he's a really nice like backline value thing that has a lot of flexible options in the deck builder, right? And that's a really big deal. I think that's kind of like the strongest thing Veigar has going for him, which is that he has the ability to hit a lot of different region combinations, right? So whether it's, you know, Ionia or Freljord or PNZ or even potentially Bilgewater or even Shadow Isles, like he's got a lot of options, and that gives him like really increased odds of hitting like one deck somewhere along the way. All right. But yeah, that's kind of like the initial impressions here. Event Horizon and Minimorph are crazy cards that Bandle is going to be able to use for like a control game plan. For the most part, these 3 cards, Darkbulb, Acolyte, Stilted, Robemaker, and Twisted Catalyzer, these are just like auto includes in the Veigar archetype. You're just kind of like running these cards in Veigar, and you're not running them outside of them, of course. Wizened Wizard is, I think this actually probably is like a little below a lot of playability. But I mean, honestly, I don't know. This card is scary. This card really is scary. Like, the value that this card provides every turn is a little insane. And if you're an archetype that's reliably using spell mana proactively, like stuff like Darknesses, then this card does get kind of like out of hand. Like, it pays for itself after 3 turns, and if you can keep it alive, it can start generating like kind of nuts value. So like this card is really, really hard to evaluate. I could see this actually being kind of terrifying, but it's really, really dependent on a certain meta. Like it is a very, very slow card, right? It's super, super slow. If you're using Freljord as your second region with Veigar, you can run Wizened. Yeah, I mean Freljord has ways of protecting it with like Troll Chant, for example. Yeah, I don't know. It's like spell ramp. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like spell ramp. I don't know. I personally don't quite see it. I'm gonna be honest. I think it looks juicy, but it's a little too hard to like keep alive and a little too hard to gain value out of. Like you have to wait 3 turns to even like pay for itself, and you'd rather just bank the mana. So I'm not a believer in Wizened Wizard. I think it looks kind of baity, but overall it's not bad. And then the Tenor of Terror and the Base of Burden. I'm actually not 100% sure about these cards. These are kind of like the ones that you can use freely. And they have like, you know, a 2/3 stat line and a 3/2 stat line with the impact keyword. But it's just kind of like a 4 mana summon 2 like decent bodies. It seems like a little bit weak for 4 mana. But I mean, the fact that you can use it in either, I don't know, these cards are so weird. Where are you supposed to run them? It's like a 4 mana house spider. Yeah, it's kind of like a 4 mana house spider, right? Like I'm not 100% sure about these 2 cards. Like impact is a nice keyword, but 4 mana might be a little bit expensive for these stat lines. Either way, I mean, it's got the Yordle keyword, so I mean, eventually if the Yordle keyword does something, maybe you'll use this as a double Yordle body. Who knows? All right, but yeah, that's the initial impression of today's reveal. So far, pretty hyped. Veigar, I literally misread one of these cards. I thought one of them was locked in Shadow Owls, so I thought Veigar was like a committed archetype in 2 regions. Turns out none of them are Shadow Owls. I might have just been looking at Darkness. And that means Veigar has like 6 different region combinations. Like Veigar is a super flexible champ. You can run him in a lot of different regions, more so than even Poppy that we saw before, which is really, really, really cool. So there'll be a lot of like, you know, deck building puzzle of like how to build him best. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Is it I've seen most of you guys saying Ionia with Karma, which I really don't mind, you know. Usually I do mind Ionia with Karma, but in this case it actually does make a lot of sense. And you know, I mean, then you've got Eye of the Dragon, which is like Eye of the Dragon is pretty good, so we can just run that card, you know. I mean, that sounds good. Like, call it a day. And like we've got the prank cards to enable Eye of the Dragon. We just returning our Darkbulb Acolyte. You know, I mean, that sounds pretty good to me. We've even got this card, Hidden Pathways, which might be a better deep meditation effectively in a deck like that. So yeah, I mean, overall, those are looking like pretty solid options. Yeah, maybe Ionia does just have to be the answer.